Well, good morning, Oklahoma. Welcome to the Middle Ground. I'm your host, Michael Carnuccio. Over the next few weeks here in 2015, we're going to be talking with the influencers in Oklahoma, the opinion leaders that will have an impact on our state, both past, present, and into the future. We're going to be talking about all the legislation and the issues that are facing the state of Oklahoma, but also the vision for our state. What direction are we heading, and why is that important? And most importantly, who are these leaders? What drives them and motivates them? And what is it about Oklahoma that they're fighting for? Well, folks, we're excited this week to be able to sit down with Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt. General Pruitt, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good to be with you, Michael.
I want to talk a little bit about who is Scott Pruitt, who's the Attorney General of Oklahoma, and why did you decide to run for office? So let's start a little bit with your family. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, I actually celebrate my 25th wedding anniversary this year, and so my wife and I have been married 25 years, have two wonderful children. McKenna, who's a sophomore at Oklahoma University, and my son is a sophomore in high school. And McKenna, it's very special. She gets a chance to cheer for the Sooners. She's a cheerleader down there, so we go down to watch football games and other things, and I'm watching the game, and my wife's watching the cheerleaders. So it's quite a fun time. But wonderful family. We've, going back even to when I ran for the Senate in 1998. I think when you run for office and when you serve in office, it really is a family call. In particular with what we're doing now, what I'm doing as Attorney General, there's so much demanded of us as a family that it's something that everyone has to feel called to it. And I'm so thankful that I've got a wife and two kiddos that are excited about what we're doing as Attorney General, but also the issues that we're fighting.
Most people talk about running for office and the kind of publicity and how everything about your life becomes in the front page of the paper on the news. But what else changed about life going back to '98 once you started serving the public?
I mean, when serving in the legislature, because it's a policy-making position, advancing tax cuts and advancing change to the workers' comp system, we were about those things. I was about those things back in 1998. Didn't have as much success then because the numbers weren't as good as they are today as far as those that have those similar beliefs. But now, serving in this position as Attorney General, it's about enforcing the law. It's about making sure that we execute the law as passed by those members of the legislature. And so the policymaking aspect is not a part of what I do, but obviously very tethered and very concerned about the policies that we're passing, and then making sure that we protect those in the back end with the legal system.
So take our viewers back to the 1990s. What made you decide to pursue public office?
I really had been serving as an attorney for several years, got involved in constitutional law early in my career. In fact, some of the religious liberty issues that we even deal with today, I cut my teeth on early in my legal career. And so there was this love for the Constitution, a love for issues around federalism and rule of law. And I think latently didn't realize that there were desires to run politically. And my wife and I spent a season of time praying through that. I made a decision in 1998 to run, and ran as a 29-year-old at the time, and ran against the 16-year incumbent, and had a victory and started serving in 1998.
So compare that first experience there in '98 as a 29-year-old running for office for the first time with this last successful re-election where you were one of just a handful of Oklahomans, I think 3 total, that were unopposed for re-election.
Well, I think that it's really interesting to see the journey I've been on, because as we started that in 1998, actually in 1997, I didn't realize that it would lead to an opportunity to serve Oklahoma as Attorney General. It's not something I've had people ask me before, had you always wanted to be Attorney General? And that's something that as I looked in the future, I didn't know one way or the other. But now that I'm serving in that capacity, looking back over the last 15 or so years, recognizing what we've done as a state, advancing some very meaningful policy changes in the legislature, but now to serve as Attorney General, I don't think there could be a more consequential time to be serving as Attorney General because of these issues that we deal with as a state with respect to this administration. And I know we're going to talk about those issues a little bit later, but the Attorney General really of each respective state is the last person standing to protect the role of the states in that relationship with the federal government. In the last 6 years with this president, it's been tested severely in immigration, in healthcare, in banking, in energy, in environmental issues across the board. And so what I did 15, 16 years ago prepared me, I think, to serve, but it was very hard to predict the length and I guess the depth of the issues we'd be dealing with the last 4 years.
Yeah, talking about that 2010 election year where you became Oklahoma's Attorney General, and it was a landslide year for Republicans, you may have seen some of the issues. So I need to ask, going into 2010, did you know that this is what the relationship between the states and the federal government would look like, or has that been kind of, you've grown in this position?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's why I ran. I mean, part of the reason I sought the office initially, and as I was elected in 2010 and started serving in 11, I established this federalism unit, a group of attorneys that are, I call them my Delta Force, that we're scouring executive orders and agency actions to determine whether the feds have overstepped their bounds, and as you know, they have in many instances. And so I really anticipated that it would be a key role and a key position. In fact, I was just, as we were sworn in today, here at the state capitol, I had a gentleman come up to me and say, I remember when you were running, for office in 2010, you said you were going to be about constitutional law and rule of law and federalism and protecting the state of Oklahoma in those ways. And he said, I didn't really know the full extent of that. And now I see. And so it was something that I anticipated. I don't know if I anticipated the multitude of issues. We knew about the healthcare law at that time, and we knew that it was coming. We knew about the, Dodd-Frank in the banking context, but it's not been limited to that, as you know, and it's kept us awful busy.
We're going to take a break here in a minute and then come back and go into some of those issues. But before we do, I want to take us back real quick. You mentioned that time and as you were getting ready to become Attorney General, and I remember you and I were part of a gathering in Enid that summer leading into the election, and where you were telling everyone about what would come up and happen. At that time, you were in the private sector, and it's an interesting part of your story. Can you share that with us, what you were doing?
I enjoyed it immensely. I mean, I served in the Senate for 8 years, left, and then we bought the baseball team a little bit, 2 or 3 years, the Oklahoma City Redhawks here in town, 2 or 3 years before I left the legislature. And so I was just about the private sector, about private business, the law practice as well. But, one of the things that you experience as a private business owner and someone that actually is responsible for meeting a payroll and growing a business and really trying to make an income for your shareholders and the people that invest in your business is you understand the importance of regulation. You understand that the role of government can be an impediment, that it can create uncertainty in how you do your business. And I knew that from a policy perspective, but I didn't know it as intimately as I did once I owned the business. And so that was a wonderful time owning the baseball team, had that for 8 to 9 years, and grew that team and that asset, and excited about the Dodgers coming to town, obviously, and still watch baseball quite a bit, but it was a wonderful time in my life.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more in just a minute about the role of Attorney General in society today and for Oklahoma moving forward. And folks, I hope you'll stick around with us as we come back with Attorney General Scott Pruitt just after this.